Several years have now passed since Toby Fox released Undertale, an independent project that has gained international acclaim and has been ported to a variety of gaming consoles. It's safe to say that the success of Undertale is undergirded both by its complex storytelling, the fact that it has a meta structure or a fourth wall breaking aspect to it, and the mystique of the fact that it was all created by one person, or at least seemingly one other person. There was, of course, another individual who is represented as the Tenny in game that was behind it, but nevertheless, Undertale brought a unique mix of indie and professionalism to something that a lot of people thought was just a bit short and a bit fallow and a bit shallow otherwise. Added to that, Undertale takes great lengths and goes to great lengths to make sure that the music that's undergirding its themes is excellent, and you add in the fact that there is this fourth wall breaking side with the ability to go in a genocidal route, a true pacifist route, or a neutral route, and with the idea of multiple endings. It's no wonder that Undertale became a game that became more personalized to individuals as they played it, so each playthrough was more and more uniquely their own. Add in the almost gothic horror elements of things like the True Lab, and it's no surprise that people have stuck to Undertale. It's kind of been absorbed inside pop cultural or even gaming the mass in such a way that even it's kind of cliche or tiresome, or other people are quick to flex on that they knew about all of these developments, or they're not actually wholly original. But Undertale is undeniable, and one factor about Undertale that's completely undeniable is what happens in the Genocide route. When you go through the Genocide route, the main character finds out that they can effortlessly cleave through a whole slew of monsters, and they just ground them into dust in one hit, so pretty soon nothing can fight them, with the exception of Undyne the Undying and, of course, Sans. At the conclusion of the Genocide route, you have destroyed nearly everything that there is in the underground. All that remains is Sans and Asgore, and there are a couple that have escaped, maybe under the direction of Alphys, but it's debatable how successful Alphys was, considering that Alphys didn't even warn Asgore sufficiently to stop you, the player character, now of course Chara, from destroying everything that everyone holds dear. The only person that's in the way and preventing your final ultimate victory from ascending to level 20 and single-handedly slicing through the entire reality and life-wiping the underground is Sans. Brother of the Bone Trussell, named after a font himself, Sans fights as hard as he possibly can. By stats, he doesn't seem very impressive. He does, after all, only have one hit point, but he plays with some of the notions that are built within Undertale, such as the following. He doesn't give you mercy invincibility, and his patterns are very difficult and very fast, unexpectedly so, not anything like what the player has seen since perhaps Undyne the Undying. But even more scarily, Sans doesn't seem to want to fight fair. He doesn't want to be attacked at all. He just, rather than stand there and taking the hits like a champion, moves out of the side in quite a cowardly fashion, but it's also pragmatic and practical, as seeing as we've one-shot everything else inside of Undertale up to that point. And so that is where we come up to Judgement Hall, a map that is made specifically inside of LittleWarGame that re-envisions the fight in a LittleWarGame context between Chara, the player character, and Sans, the last hope of monsters, perhaps the entire world. While Chara has one simple goal, simply melee attack or throw a knife at Sans, which will kill Sans, Sans has to rely on teleportation, temporary invincibility, and a slew of projectiles, all with great emphasis on speed, precision, and control to make sure that they can put Chara down. Chara has, in addition to the ability to fling a knife and to just melee attack Sans for the victory, the ability to minorly heal themselves. And the thing that makes this very interesting and thematically appropriate is that no matter how many times you try it over and over and over, it becomes obvious that the player that has the most difficulty put upon them is in fact the Sans player. The number of things that they have to do is almost silly. They have 5 or 6 separate hotkeys. They have 2 separate projectile attacks. They destroy their own projectiles that they put down with a W if they are not cautious. And additionally, they have to use their temporary invincibility and teleportation to stop a Chara that can simply win, but almost seemingly by A moving. However, if they manage to do that, the Sans player is filled with a great sense of relief at having won. But they know that that victory, while hard fought, wasn't necessarily finished, as after all, just like in Undertale, you can always reboot the Judgement Hall and play again as Chara, and hope to find that a Sans that faces you next time isn't quite as dexterous, isn't quite as capable, and is caught lacking, or perhaps sleeping, one might say, and then you can send a final cut that sends them to the grill bees that they'll never meet after all.